What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Coleman, here with my wonderful co-host, EJ Snyder. And my voice, I think, has finally stabilized after 2 straight Sundays of being in very loud stadiums. If you weren't following along on the Twitters or the Instagrams or anything like that, I was up in Seattle last weekend visiting EJ, went out to the Titans-Seahawks game, had just amazing seats. There's really not a bad seat at all of Lumen Field, but you know, we were in the back right up by the 12s flag, could see the whole skyline in the distance. It was a beautiful day for football, you know, beautiful blue skies. The rain forecast turned out to be no rain at all during the game. Just an incredible Sunday of football. I'm just blown away by the quality of the NFL these first 2 weeks. This has been one of the more exciting starts to the season that I can remember in a long time, and we've just been spoiled by the amount of incredible games that not only that we've gone to in person now, but that we've seen on TV every single week as well.
Did you see that folks on Twitter were reaching out to us and saying, let us know where you're going to be because apparently you only go to overtime games, so I'll bet accordingly.
Yeah, back to back. And to be honest, I've been to a lot of NFL games, and I've never been to one that was a blowout, like ever. I think half of all NFL games I've ever been to have gone to overtime. Like even in the 2013 Texans, I believe it was, they were down at the San Diego at the time Chargers. They only won 2 games that entire year. And I was at week 1. It was a Monday night opener against the Chargers. That one went to overtime as well. And they were awful, and that game still was close. So I just have a unique gift of going to close football games. And I'll just say this. If we end up going to Bills-Chiefs in a few weeks, I think Bills and Chiefs fans might not appreciate that because it's going to be a barn burner if we do.
Can't avoid it, but if we're lucky enough, we've been lucky enough to be in 2 great stadiums for the first 2 weeks of the season, see 2 great games. Most everybody followed along for our travel down to Vegas and Allegiant. It was great to have you up here, get to go to Lumen Field. Last time I was there, it was the Clink, CenturyLink Field. So I haven't been back in a while. I was a season ticket holder back in the mid-2000s and have been to a few sort of scattered games since then, but it's been a while since I've been back in that stadium, and it was great to see. We were expecting some crappy weather. We got great weather. Again, I thought the seats were tremendous, and the game turned out to be really interesting. We're going to talk about the game in depth, but before we do that, we got to get into drinks. So what do you have? Because that also has a Seattle flavor.
Yeah, well, when I was up there, I mean, I've had their product on the show before, but I'm a big fan of Woodinville Whiskey Company up in Woodinville, Washington. Probably, what would you say, like half hour outside of downtown Seattle, if that?
Yeah, 25 minutes, depending on traffic. About the same distance for me. Again, if there's no traffic. If there's traffic, it's like an hour from me.
And they make just a fantastic product. Probably the most readily available one for most people around the country is going to be their port cask finish or their straight rye. They do a 100% rye mash bill that traditionally 100% rye mash bills are very temperamental and they're very hard to get right, and they get theirs right. And they just released this one like the week before I came up, and you can only get it at the Woodinville Distillery in Woodinville, Washington. And it is a muscatel finish bourbon. And if you don't know what muscatel is, it's like a Portuguese fortified wine. And to my knowledge, this is the only bourbon in the country that's finished in muscatel casks. So it's a very unique thing. One of the more unique whiskeys I've ever had in my life. And it's not like a traditional like a sherried bourbon or a port cask finish. Like, it's totally different, a little bit drier, not as like fruit forward, more like apricot-y. You definitely get a lot more spice to it. It's incredibly unique, but really, really damn good. And since they don't ship it anywhere unless you're in the state of Washington, I had to pick it up there. I actually brought back a whole haul of whiskey back to California with me, and this is one of the bottles I got. And they make just really, really tremendous stuff.
So strange that you came to Washington and went home with whiskey and some sunshine, which is really odd. But you
Yeah,
also
very
got to see
off-brand for me.
very off-brand, but you did get to see it pour here. We went out to dinner on Friday night, and Brett did get to see the true Washington open up. We had our first serious rainfall this season, and it was down south they call that a toad strangler, and it was impressive. We had rivers of water running down the hills in Tacoma.
You had geysers shooting up out of manholes. Let's not
Yeah.
undersell this thing.
Yeah, it was showing off a little bit. We had 2 and 3 foot geysers at the bottom of the hill shooting out of manholes, so it was a good time. But I actually have a beer from a listener. Got me this a bit ago, and it seemed right to pull it out. I've just been sort of keeping it in cold storage, but we're at that time of year, and this is a Paul Anner Oktoberfest Marzen. For those of you that don't know Marzens, certainly rounder than a lot of German beers. Closer to what in the U.S. would call an amber. So they're Oktoberfest. Paul Anner, hundreds of years brewing beer. Fantastic stuff. Brought me a 6-pack of this, which is very nice of him. And then for my shot, something I shared with you when you were up here, which is the Dooley's 8-year rum, which I gave to you blind and said, try this. And you swore that if I hadn't told you it was rum, you would have thought it was whiskey. So for those of you that say I don't like rum because all you've had is like a Bacardi White or a 151, any kind of jet fuel like that, go ahead and go out and get Dooley's. You can find it at most Bevmos or Total Wine, whatever your large beverage stores are. Get the 8-year aged Barbados. It's in the mid-20s, 25, 26 bucks a bottle, and it is delightful. It's got a very dark brown color to it, and doesn't have the typical burn that you'll get out of rum. It's warm. It'll warm you up, but it's round and somewhat sweet. So give it a shot if you don't think you like rum. Dooley's aged 8-year rum.
Really, really good stuff, by the way. One of my favorite rums that you've ever given me. And you've given me some pretty good rums before. Before we get into these games, by the way, I do want to give a quick little reminder to the listeners about our new format this year, calling it the Rule of 3. So we have 3 segments of 3 parts each. We got 3 Up, which is 3 games that we really loved watching for one reason or another, or 3 coaches or teams or players that are kind of ascending that we want to talk about. 3 Down, which is 3 teams or players or coaches that had a pretty rough week, and we want to talk about their struggles and what it could mean for them going forward. And then 3 Interesting, which it can be 3 of anything. It can be something weird that happened in a game, a team, a player, a coach. Again, just something kind of a one-off interesting note that we couldn't go an entire show without talking about. So we're calling it the Rule of 3, starting off with 3 Up, with the game that, as mentioned before, you and I were at in person this past week up in Seattle, Titans at Seahawks. It was a fascinating game to me for multiple reasons. I would say the most surprising part about that game is, maybe it was just the angle that you and I were sitting at in the seats, because, we were not at midfield. We were more kind of behind one of the end zones, and we're watching Derrick Henry get the ball, Derrick Henry get the ball, Derrick Henry get the ball, and nothing was really happening for them on the ground, at least seemingly, until that 60-yard touchdown run. And you and I were like, man, they're really establishing the run. Like, they're down by 16 points and they are committing to the run. They might want to start opening it up here. And then we look at the end of the game, and it's kind of a testament to the difference between watching a game live and watching it at home, is when you look at the stat sheet after and he's got 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. We're like, damn, I didn't even realize that he was piling up that kind of yardage. Maybe it really was working. But I think it's just kind of a testament to the body blows approach that Derrick Henry brings you, where you're down by 2 possessions and you're still insisting on running the ball, even when all the analytics in the world tell you not to. And then he breaks a 60-yard touchdown. You're back in the game. You get a stop. You get the ball back. It's tied. You go to OT. You get one more stop, and then you win almost entirely because of Derrick Henry. And it was a fascinating game for how it kind of went against modern offensive thinking, and they still got a road win. It was really, really interesting to me. What about you?
Yeah, in a very tough and loud place to play. Lumen Field is notoriously loud. They don't just give you the decibel ranking, they give you the Richter scale when plays go off there. And we saw Tannehill and the Titans grab a couple of false starts. That's just blood in the water for the fans. It just gets louder. They know they can't hear coming in. They have hand signals and the guard touching the center to snap at and just all the regular heavy noise protocols that an NFL team employs. Doesn't really matter. It's so loud that it starts sort of cavitating inside your skull. Like, it's physical noise. And to come out of there with a road win again, relying largely on Derrick Henry. And I'll just say that Lumen Field has a way of like shrouding rushing yards, because even when I was a season ticket holder, Sean Alexander, and we would always talk about this in the couple of seasons that I had season tickets, Sean Alexander would look to have very normal days. You'd be like, yeah, he's doing all right. Like, he's probably got like 70 yards rushing, 75. He's probably got another 15, 20 receiving. Again, you look down at the stats at the end of the game, he went for $125 on the ground, 35 through the air, and 2 scores. And you're just like, it didn't feel like that, right? So that it felt reminiscent of those performances in a certain way, because I don't know, that field just kind of eats it. It doesn't, when you're there live, maybe it's the noise, maybe it's that you're concentrating on other things, but it felt like a very Seahawks game. Our buddy Danny Kelly, who we've had on the show, who's a Seattle native, lives here in Washington, has been watching Seahawks for a long time, came from Field Gulls and is now at the Ringer, tweeted out like, oh yeah, as a person that's watched the Seahawks, I'm sure missing that extra point won't come into play like midway through the third quarter. And I was laughing really hard, and everybody in our section was, turning around like, why is this guy laughing when the Seahawks are kind of faltering? I was laughing at Danny's tweet because you just knew as somebody that sat through, a couple of years worth of games in that stadium and watched plenty more on TV, like, this is how the Seahawks do, right? This is their thing. They don't play normal games. They keep it close. A lot of times, given Pete Carroll's success, they do pull it out in the end, right? Russell Wilson will pull them through fairly often, but they are the cardiac kids, right? They do not make it easy on their fans, and it just felt like, I tweeted out at one point, like, oh, this is pretty much setting up to be the most Seahawks thing ever right now, and it just played out that way. So it's not great for the Seahawks fans that came home, for all the Tennessee fans that were there, and there were many.
Surprising amount, by the way.
Yeah, they pulled out what I would call a very valuable victory. Like, this is not an easy place to come. It did not look like the day was going to go their way for most of the day. Even forcing overtime didn't look all that likely. Again, the dam breaks after, Derrick Henry's battering ram. But again, Seahawks controlled him, and many teams have done this. Controlled him, limited yards. There really wasn't any sort of spark or life. And then, look, Quandre Diggs takes a step in the bucket, realizes that he might have gone a step too far, gets the nasty little backside stiff arm, and Derrick Henry goes, and the game changes. And then he gets a bunch of carries in overtime as well, and he racks up 182 overall yards, 3 touchdowns. It's the difference in the game.
And another, speaking of stats that sneak up on you, Bobby Wagner had 20 tackles. 20 tackles in one game, which I can only remember off the top of my head like 3 times, seeing a linebacker be that productive in one game. Maybe it was the product of the fact that, Titans ran the ball like 40 times, but, it's another one of those things where it's like, because when you're at Lumen Field, maybe it's because there's like not a whole lot of screen space anywhere in the stadium. Like, you just trying to find the score is a little bit of a chore there. There's like a narrow band halfway up the stadium where it's like the only place you can see the down and distance. Contrast that to Vegas, where there's screens everywhere and you see how many, targets Darren Waller has at any given moment. You don't really get that in-game stats update experience. And so, you look at the stat sheet and you're like, shit, Bobby Wagner had more tackles in one game than some linebackers get in a month. It's just kind of a footnote obviously in his very illustrious career, but very few linebackers I can remember have ever done that before.
He's a guy you want to watch in person. Like Bobby Wagner is, and he's not in any way under the radar. Everybody knows Bobby Wagner's Bobby Wagner. In fact, he got a Pro Bowl vote last year, and was considered All-Pro, considered for All-Pro because he was Bobby Wagner, not because he had a great year. But like on Sunday, he looked like Bobby Wagner, and it's cool to know that you're sitting in a stadium watching a guy that's probably going into the Hall of Fame and deserves it, right? That sack that he got, and one of the things that I think people don't appreciate about Bobby Wagner is how freaking big he is. And in person, you see it. Like the size of the average NFL linebacker has shrunk. We have a lot of guys that are playing about 215, 220. There's a lot of converted safeties that are playing as a second linebacker now, and they look just like safeties, right? Bobby Wagner in no way resembles a safety. Guy's 245, 250, looks every pound of it, and can still run like a safety. When you see a guy like that up close and you see what he's doing, he's not just plugging against the run. He had a great sack, flashed through the line, just annihilated Ryan Tannehill. He is a big, powerful dude that runs really, really well. And, you see people occasionally make the Urlacher comparison because he can cover that kind of ground. He can cover in the pass. He can absolutely bring heavy hits in the run game that guys that are 215, 220 can't necessarily. Some do. But Wagner's just a guy, I'm glad that I've seen him multiple times in person. He's one of those guys I can check off my list, and when he eventually gets his gold jacket, I can say, yep, yeah, that's a thing. That was not press made. That was not hype. Like, that guy did his job really well for a long time in a lot of big games, and I got to see it.
If anything, and this, again, is weird because he's one of the best linebackers of his generation, I feel like he was underappreciated
for a long time.
Prime, like, the early to late Legion of Boom era, like the early 2010s to mid 2010s. I can't think of very many linebackers that I think were as good in coverage in Bobby's prime, like in terms of not just athletic ability, like, yeah, he could get depth like Urlacher could, but route recognition, ball skills, ability to flip the hips. He's one of the all-timers to me. And even though he will, as you mentioned, go to the Hall of Fame, I feel good that I was able to see him live because he's one of those guys where, like, I have like a list that I'm checking off. Like, I got to see a Russell moonball to Tyler Lockett live with my own eyes.
You
like,
got to see a couple.
Checking that one off the list. Got to see a couple. I got to see a Derrick Henry 60-yard touchdown, grown man run live. Like, I just have this list of guys in the NFL that I'm going through where it's like, I want to be able to see them before I die. That was a great game to go to. As a neutral fan, it was entertaining from start to finish. Glad that you invited me up to come see it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got tickets. Shout out to my buddy Brandon Scholes, who runs the Field Goals podcast. He got the block of tickets. He wasn't able to make it. We're gonna have to call a redo on that one because really enjoyed Brandon's company. But turned out to be a special day. Your first time in the stadium. The rain held off. It wasn't just supposed to be raining. It was supposed to be storming if you looked at the weather app with little lightning bolts and the whole bit. So we went all prepared. We ended up getting great fall weather, great football day. Really exciting game, second OT game in a week. And, Seattle will right the ship. They always do. Titans kind of got off the schneid they had going for, again, the first week when everybody overreacts and Rabel got back to ground and pound. And, Titans pull a very valuable, what will be a very valuable road win probably at the end of the year. So really fun. We got to eat some great food. You got to go to Woodinville. It was just all around. It was a ton of fun. I'm really glad you came up.
And right after that game, because that was the afternoon game, our second 3-up of the week happened, which is Chiefs-Ravens, and I only got to see the second half live, so I had to go back and watch the first half later. But really, it was the second half that ended up being the more important half to see, so I'm glad I saw that one live. There's really no other way to describe that game than just batshit crazy. I mean, it started out as like a typical, Chiefs Ravens game. Chiefs had some big plays. They kind of took control in the third quarter. They were up by 2 possessions. Next thing you know, like Marquise Brown gets a big play, and you're like, oh shit, the Ravens are back in this thing. They're down to like their 4th running back, and Rashad Bateman's still hurt, and Lamar's just doing it all at some point. He's under pressure and still scrambling for huge first downs and just kind of willing this offense back in the game. And then, the typical Travis Kelce back-breaking, huge touchdown happens. You're like, okay, it's over. And then it wasn't. Then the Ravens clawed back again. And I don't want to say it was like a franchise-changing win, because the Baltimore Ravens, they've had a lot of amazing franchise moments. But I think in terms of the trajectory of this era of Ravens football, where they win 80% of their games, except the ones that really matter, which are the Chiefs games or, the Titans in the playoffs, or it felt like nothing really matters for them from like September to December, because nobody takes them seriously against some of the other, big shots in the AFC and eventually in the NFC if they ever make a Super Bowl. This was a game that felt like it was kind of turning the tide in this era, where now if they're going up against the Chiefs again in January in a rematch, we have to take that seriously. They got the Titans monkey off their back already. Now they got the Chiefs monkey off their back. We know that they can beat the Steelers. We know they can beat the Browns, but it was those 2 teams specifically that I felt was giving them the most problems, and now they actually have wins against them. They actually beat Patrick Mahomes in a primetime game, despite being down by 2 possessions. These were all things that everybody said they couldn't do, let alone with all the injuries they've had, and they just did them. This, to me, kind of changes the course, or rather changes the expectations that I think we can have for the Ravens, because they proved that they can do it. They proved that they can be heavy underdogs against arguably the best team in the league and still win. Just a massive, massive victory for them that I think completely transforms my outlook for them as a team for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I had fairly high expectations for the Ravens because they draft well, the roster construction is good, they have enough talent. Last year they really sputtered on offense. This year we thought, okay, they've added some of the pieces they were missing, Bateman especially. And, then Bateman gets hurt early, and, they have offensive linemen go down, and you think, geez, okay, we're just not going to get to see it again, or we're not going to get to see it until late, and it might not matter. And here you go into this early season game. Well, Kansas City comes to their house, and there is still something to home field. There is, especially this year with fans back in the stadium. And everybody says, like you said, the narrative was, look, you're going to win most of those games. You got a great shot in most of those games. You're probably favored in a lot of those games. But when you go to Kansas City, like, I don't know, we're just kind of going to shrug and say Pat Mahomes, right? I don't know. They got Pat Mahomes. I don't think I'm going to give you points. I don't think I'm going to give you the line. And now Ravens fans can kind of buck up the chest and go, yeah, and we got Lamar Jackson. And it was the difference, right? Without Lamar Jackson, it might seem overly obvious to say this.
They lose.
Ravens don't win this game, right?
No, not even close.
They're not close. And Lamar Jackson changed this game. And I tweeted out, Lamar's going to Lamar. And for the second week in a row, we got to see him live the first week against the Raiders. And he had some plays in that game. They didn't end up winning that game. But he had some plays, again, to keep them in that game where you just kind of throw your hands up and go, look, if you're a defensive coordinator, you're going to check off 3 or 5 a game where you just go, well, it's Lamar Jackson. We did our very best, and he did his thing. He did that a bunch in this game. He did it with his legs. He did it with his arm, more so with his legs, but not without his arms. Again, without his arm. You talked about the big throw to Brown. This sort of kept them going. There were several runs that were, again, you just look down, and it's a video game occurring in front of you. Like, this is stuff that doesn't happen on a typical football field, and I really think Baltimore can lean on that and say, look, if we get a good game out of Lamar, we can beat anybody, including Mahomes, And look, the KC fans say the same thing about him. Look, if we get a good game out of Mahomes, really doesn't matter. We can beat just about anybody. And they're right. They're both right. And now it sets it up for, hey, look, we won at our house. If we end up playing you again in the playoffs or whatever else, we're not coming in scared. If we have Lamar and you have Mahomes, we like our chances. Like, we've got enough. The defense showed out. Justin Madubuike, who's a guy that we really liked last year, kind of took a little while to warm up. He had a great game. He talked about Owe. Patrick Queen covered a lot of ground in that game. Shut down some receivers, which, there's a lot of buzz last year that he wasn't worth the pick. But there's great play on the other side too. This is two great teams loaded with talent. If I told you that somebody had 7 catches for 109 yards and they averaged 15.5 per and ended up with a touchdown, you would not say that person was a tight end, right? Just betting the over, right? That's not a tight end. Well, it is. It's Travis Kelce, and he is tremendous. He's a great football player. He's on my list, much like, you were checking people off your list. I've seen Lamar in person. I want to see Travis Kelce in person because there was that one play. It's the one play, like you said, you called it out. The one Travis Kelce kind of backbreaking touchdown where you go, he's not,
yeah,
did it
again.
again.
It goes from like, oh, it's a screen for 10 yards, whatever, they're going to get a first down. And then it's like, okay, now it's a 20-yard gain. Okay, now it's a 30-yard gain. Oh.
Now they're going to catch him. And you're like, whoa, it's a tight end. Did you hear this the other day? Travis Kelce brought this up. It was during last week's media cycle. And it was one of those things that kind of floated out there. And I was looking around, metaphorically going, did anybody else hear this? Like, this is insane. Travis Kelce can run any route on any play that he wants so long as he doesn't interrupt the other player's routes.
That doesn't surprise me because when you watch him on tape, sometimes you're like, he just looks like he's making it up as he goes along sometimes.
So here's a thing that, when you hear it and you think about it, you go, that kind of makes sense. And that's nuts.
Yeah.
If you have a knowledge of NFL passing games, even a fairly rudimentary knowledge of how complex NFL passing games are and what the rules are and what receivers are and how roles differ and how one thing is not the other, and you go into certain systems and there's sight adjusts that are based on leverage, on feel, like to say to any player, oh, do whatever you want, because unless you mess up somebody else's route, to understand and to trust that player that they know everybody else's route, they know what to do, and they're going to find the best thing more often than not. That's like going to an NFL quarterback these days and saying, the playbook, just call whatever you want so long as it works, which is what happened in the 40s and the 50s and to a slight extent, maybe to Peyton Manning by the end of his career, where he was waving people off going, no, I got it. But it's extremely rare. And the fact that nobody freaked out about that statement, I was like, I can't be the only one that's like, do you realize what that really means? And my general assumption was, okay, you don't, because everybody was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, no, not yeah, sure. I don't know if there's another player in the NFL that has that free reign as a wide receiver.
The only equivalent that I can think of is actually on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Troy Polamalu.
Oh, right.
When he was there.
Be wherever. Yeah. Do the right thing.
Dick LeBeau, the great Dick LeBeau, said, Troy was like the one guy on defense where you trusted him to do whatever he wanted to do, because even if he was technically compromising the structure of a coverage, he was only going to do it if he was absolutely sure that he was right, and he was always right. So it's like if he wanted to blitz, he was going to blitz because he knew that he could get to the quarterback before the quarterback realized that he was in the wrong spot. And Troy had just had such these crazy instincts. And it goes the other way too, where it's like if he was supposed to blitz, but he had a feeling that ball was coming out quick and he had to be in a different spot, he was going to be in that other spot. Pat McAfee has that famous story about how, he was lining up for the fake field goal for a touchdown, and Troy lined up in the gap that he never lined up in ever his entire time on special teams, just because he had that kind of instinct. And I think that Travis Kelce has that kind of instinct. And you see it like when Pat's running too. Oh, yeah. Travis never runs with Pat when Pat's running to his right or running to his left. Regardless of where Travis is, and regardless of whatever route he's running, he knows, I'm going to run here and then I'm going to sag behind. I'm going to sag towards the middle of the field. Because when Pat's running to his right, a lot of the time he's not going to throw to his right. He's going to look for Travis sagging over the middle and then do his crazy Mahomes thing and throw back over the middle. That's why Travis is always wide ass open whenever Mahomes is on the move, is because Mahomes knows that if his quarterback is moving to his right, the defense is going to go to the right, so he's going to go to the left. And it's just that kind of instinct, that kind of natural football IQ that helps him make some of these ridiculous plays. And beyond the fact that he's just so incredibly talented, he's a freak athlete, butter soft hands, all that kind of stuff. He's one of the smartest tight ends I have ever seen, and probably ever will see. And I'm just like you. He's on my list to see before he retires, because he's, 32 now. I've only got a few more years left. I'm going to kick myself in the pants if I don't see Travis Kelce live, because he is a transformational football player that will be in Canton after 5 years. He's a first ballot guy.
Oh, for sure. I would say transcendent. He's a guy that has done things at the position, when you take the entirety of it, that very few guys have done throughout history at that position. And look, this is a guy that was in the league lead for yardage for receivers, not tight ends, receivers, right up until the end of the season last year. He's just different in so many ways, in the run game, in the pass game, between the ears. Just a fantastic player. And there were players on both sides that made plays. We saw guys like Justin Madubuike and Owe on the defense. We obviously saw Lamar, a bunch of the receivers step up. And then, Kansas City's loaded as well. This was two heavyweights with very talented rosters slugging it out. And I, like you, didn't see the first half. I was taking the train back, got in my car, was like, I'm hungry. I'm going to stop. Stopped at a Buffalo Wild Wings because I knew they'd have the game on. Grabbed a snack and was like, I'll watch like a quarter of this and then I'll watch the rest of the game later. Well, I watched like a quarter of it. My food comes. I eat my food, drinking my beer, and I'm like, I'm not leaving. Right? I'm going to sit right here and watch the rest of this because this is getting good. And really glad I didn't. Ended up staying right to the end until, the Ravens ended up sealing it. But that's the entertainment value in the NFL because of that. Two talented rosters just slugging it out, primetime game. I wasn't leaving. I was glued to my seat. I'm like, nah, I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to watch the end of this. And those are the kind of games we've had. You alluded to it earlier in the podcast through the first 2 weeks. That's why the NFL ratings are so high. That's why it's such a tremendous product. And there's so many pieces of the NFL media landscape like us that have spun off around it, because there's just tremendous interest. It's just compelling. It's fascinating. It's great theater. It's amazing. And this was a sort of primetime gem example of a game like that.
One last note before we move on to our third game. The Ravens played, to honor Michael K. Williams, the great actor from The Wire who played Omar. They played Omar's whistle before the Ravens came out of the tunnel. And like that gave me chills, because it's so Baltimore. And like there's been like a movement on Twitter where it's like, Ravens, if you don't play Omar's whistle before they come out of the tunnel every fucking game from here on out, you're doing it wrong, because it was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It was a beautiful moment to a beautiful artist. So I have to tell you a story, and this is in no way on the level of Omar at all, or his match to Baltimore. But the Buffalo Wild Wings I stopped at is the one near my house. And 2 years ago, I watched just about every Bears game there because direct TV situation, blah, blah, blah. So if there was a Bears game that wasn't on prime time, I went to Buffalo Wild Wings. Look, Buffalo Wild Wings, not necessarily my favorite. It's solid. But I knew they'd have the game on, and they were really consistent like that. And sure enough, they have all the games on. So you get fans from all over the country, like me here in the Pacific Northwest, that don't necessarily
You're really angling for Buffalo Wild Wings sponsorship on the pod, aren't you?
You know, if they want to kick down, I'm all about it. But you get fans from all over who are doing the same thing to track their teams. And there was this guy, and he's a Baltimore fan. And he is a big Baltimore fan. And he was there a couple of years ago, and he had his Ravens jersey on. He had the big B chain on, right? His hat backwards. And whenever the Ravens made a play and you were Baltimore Wild Wings, whether or not they were on the big screen, you could tell because this guy would stand up and go, "Be more." That's right, be more. And you're like, okay, the Ravens crowd's here. It's fun, right? It's fans. It's like being in a stadium, except you're in a Buffalo Wild Wings having a beer and a sandwich, right? So obviously, a little bit sparser crowd at Buffalo Wild Wings when I stopped in. I haven't been there in a couple of years. Didn't go at all last year because of COVID, right? First time in a long time. And, tables are spaced out, a little bit sparser crowd. Didn't really look around the place. And was, the game on the big screen because it's Sunday Night Football. And sure enough, first Lamar run, I hear, "Be more." I turn around and it's that guy. And I'm like, he's back. Right? I'm back. He's back. Man. NFL football is back. And he obviously had a great night because they ended up beating the Chiefs. He was the only guy. He had no posse with him. He was like the Baltimore fan, repping Baltimore. He was loud and proud. And it was great. It was fun. I was like, now NFL football is back because B More guy is back. And, he had a tremendous night. So good times.
It just feels like this football season just feels like a homecoming. It feels like...
It does feel like coming back.
Yeah, we're having the barbecue in the backyard, seeing friends we haven't seen in a long time. It's just
agreed.
It's refreshing. It's so refreshing. Now, speaking of great games, well, maybe not for everybody, but for at least half the people involved.
Sure.
Our number 3 is Saints versus Panthers. I gotta tell you, man, Saints fans have been on a little bit of an emotional roller coaster these first couple weeks because they beat the brakes off the Packers in week 1 and then got absolutely crushed by the Panthers in week 2. So they don't really know what to make of their team yet. But I will say this to Saints fans listening to this. Don't feel too bad because the Panthers are really good. So a division game against a fast, ferocious defense where your offensive line just could not sort out pressures at all. You're working with a very thin group of skill position players. It almost felt like this kind of game was destined for New Orleans. Like, this was so perfectly set up for them to get their asses kicked. And they did. I don't necessarily think it's going to stay like that for them all year. I still think they're a really good team. But this was a perfect storm of hyper-athletic, ultra-aggressive defense versus a quarterback that's still getting acclimated, an offensive line that still hasn't gelled yet, and their best wide receiver being Marquez Callaway, I guess. Like, this kind of felt predetermined in a way. So don't feel too bad if you're a Saints fan. That's just going to happen sometimes. But if you're a Panthers fan, you're feeling great because all of a sudden you have, statistically, so far, the best defense in the league. Sam Darnold seems to be going through a little bit of a career resurgence. CMC looks like CMC. The young receivers look really good. The offensive line has been hit or miss, but at least it hasn't been awful. Like, there's a lot to love here with this Panthers team. And lucky for them, I don't know when this podcast is coming out. I might get it out before Thursday Night Football, but lucky for them, they're going to get a cupcake Houston Texans squad for week 3 and potentially could be looking at 3-0 here to start the year. And at least history has shown that if you start the year 3-0, you're probably going to the playoffs. So Panthers fans feeling pretty good right about now.
Yeah, it's starting to gel for the Panthers plan. And just that shout out to Saints fans. If you thought that, Jameis Winston as your quarterback was going to lead to a very safe and steady year in terms of results, that was probably a projection. That's not going to happen. Jameis is going to go up and down. The highs will be very high. The lows will be very low. They beat the brakes off the Packers, which was unexpected. I lost money on that game. And then they come back against, again, a very good defense. And when I say the Panthers' plan is coming together, last year's draft was all defense top to bottom. They added some very important pieces in the offseason. They drafted defense again at the top, got J.C. Horn. And the plan starts to come together, right? Phil Snow is a guy who every place he's been, he says that year 2 it starts to come together, and year 3 it comes together, and he has his best result. So he's on or slightly ahead of schedule, and we got to see that in full throat versus the Saints, which is talent meshing with scheme, meshing with I'm starting to get it and trust what everybody else is doing at the same time. And we saw contributions from all over that team. Like Shaq Thompson flashed. We saw, J.C. Horn ends up getting his pick, but that was really at the end of the game. That wasn't even necessarily a contributing factor in this game. And there's so many guys that are starting to pay dividends. I talked about Brian Burns in our, Defensive Player of the Year episode.
Your guy, Bravion Roy, by the way, speaking of defensive linemen, he's coming through.
They just got it from all over the place, right? Shaq Thompson, I said, flash. Jeremy Chin, we talked about last year, could have been Defensive Rookie of the Year. Brian Burns, Justin Burris, not necessarily a guy you'd say. Hassan Reddick flashed early, had his sack right in the first quarter. Morgan Fox is a guy that I know you're going to be talking about. Derek Brown. Like, they have this rotation, and everybody was chipping in and making plays, coming off the edge. They had safeties. They had edge rushers. They had defensive tackles getting pressure. They locked up the run game. Alvin Kamara did not look like a threat, and it's very rare that happens because Kamara is consistently a threat running and passing. They had him snuffed. Like, he never really broke anything in this game. They just suffocated him. And that defense is smothering. On the other side, the offense is starting to come together. We talked about all the weapons they've assembled. Darnold was complete Jekyll and Hyde in this game. And he was more on it than he was off. But the thing I wrote in my notes is there wasn't any middle ground. He was zipping middle completions in tight windows. He did it over and over again. But when he missed, he missed. He flat out missed. He had the brain fart sort of, I'll just cough it up interception to Malcolm Roach, the defensive lineman. He basically handed it to him as he was getting sacked. There were some strange decisions, but again, it was probably about 2/3, 1/3. In the 2/3, he was ripping the ball. Like, Sam Darnold was just absolutely throwing needle shot completions to guys that were covered and taking chunk yardage, moving him down, scoring touchdowns. And then occasionally when he missed, it was, oh, yeah, that's Sam. But more good than bad, and that's a great start. And if he has that kind of support from Phil Snow's defense, which it looks like he's going to, because it isn't one guy that you can shut off. It's not like, oh, if we take care of Khalil Mack, no problem. Like, the pressure's going to come from all over. There were several times, I talked to you about this, that Jameis early in the game, I swear to God, he stood up, held the ball in front of his chest and went, what is this? Like, he had no idea. And he ended up taking a loss on the play. But just that confusion of, wait, what? This isn't like anything I've ever seen. The NFL's getting used to, again, Phil Snow's defense, which was forged against spread concepts in the Big 12 and other places. And he just looked lost and kind of just seeing ghosts is the one that gets applied to Darnold on the other side. That was his line in New York. Jameis on Sunday was seeing ghosts.
This is going to be a little bit of a diatribe, so I apologize in advance. But I want to
go for it.
I want to give people a little preview of what I've been researching this week, because the next Film Room episode I'm doing over on the Film Room channel is on Phil Snow's defense and how everything's kind of come together. So Matt Rule has never coached a game without Phil Snow as his defensive coordinator. They've been together forever, even going back to Temple. And he was a pretty typical 3-4 guy at Temple. 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, Most of the time it was going to be a 5-man surface, so the 2 outside linebackers are going to be up in the line of scrimmage, making a total of 5 guys in the line of scrimmage, 2 linebackers behind them, single high safety, a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 1. They go to Baylor in the Big 12. A lot of air raid over there. A lot of passing concepts that absolutely kick the shit out of single high safety looks. So they kind of copied a little bit of what Texas was doing, and they started incorporating a lot, and also what Iowa State was doing. They call it the Cyclone Stack. It's a lot of 505, it's a lot of tight front, 3 guys in the line of scrimmage, dropping 8 in coverage, 2 high safeties, and they kind of mixed that together with their 3-4 single high stuff. And it worked. They were like 7th or 8th in defensive efficiency after, as you said, 2 or 3 years when they kind of got everything working together, because that was not their forte. They had to learn it on the fly after going to the Big 12 and getting lit up. They were like 100th or something in defense their first year. And they're like, oh shit, we got to do different stuff down here. They actually throw. So then he goes to the NFL, and they kind of played a little bit too soft for the NFL game last year. And they just got dinked and dunked to death because they realized that either you're going to get run on for 5 yards a carry, and they'll do that over and over and over again, or you're just going to have quarterbacks sit back and, throw dragon concepts all over you. And again, you'll give up 12, 13, 14 play drives. This year, they kind of mixed everything together from their journey. They're back to those more pro-style 3-4 fronts with 5-man surfaces, 2 linebackers, single high safety structure, but they're incorporating a lot of the pressure packages that you see at the college level and some defensive line techniques that you see at the college level. A lot of 4-man pressures that are called creepers, where you're bringing second-level defenders and DBs and everything like that, and it looks like a blitz. They call it simulated pressures, but it's really still just 4 guys, and that's actually how they got that last Brian Burns sack, was they brought a creeper, and the offensive line just didn't know how to handle it. They let Burns go free, and he absolutely detonated Jameis in the back. So they're throwing more of that stuff in that you see quite frequently at the college level these days, because guys want to figure out how to get pressure without sacrificing people in coverage, because you still got to guard all these receivers in space. Not to mention you have, to me, the X factor of the entire defense. You talk about Derek Brown, you talk about Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, all those guys. Based on everything that I've charted from their first 2 games, Morgan Fox is like the MVP of this defense. This defense would not function properly without Morgan Fox, who plays kind of a quasi 4-eye, plays 5 technique for them. They'll bump him out to 6 at times. Even on passing downs, they'll put him at a 3 just because they can. And he plays this, strong side defensive end position where you have to do everything. Like, he rushes the passer like a maniac. He's like 3rd in interior pressures at the moment. He plays the run extremely well. He has to read and react based on the first step of the offensive lineman. Like, there was a play he made, I think it was in the Jets game, he used a 5 technique, and they ran power away from him. He read the pull key from the guard over his left shoulder, knew that they were running power away from him, stepped back, scraped over the top, got in the hole front side, and made the play. Like, coaches draw that up in the whiteboard all the time, but to actually see a guy do that, I was like, damn. So, like, this defense, again, would not function without Morgan Fox. Unfortunately, I don't think he's practiced all week this week with something. I'm not entirely sure what his problem is, but, like, pay attention if he doesn't play on Thursday, because this defense will significantly change without him on the field. Like, they need him really bad.
Yeah, it's a fascinating watch, and it's not often that you see a well-coached team, a Sean Payton coached team, have as many busts on the offensive line, just flat out like, and they were missing their center. We need to bring that up, right? They didn't have McCoy, they went to Ruiz. Like, and there were just flat out like open rushers, because you thought, oh, well, Nope. And that was it for Jameis. And you were talking about a play where he bailed out at the end of the game with no pressure. Like he took the snap and just flat turned like he was being pursued and left the pocket. And you were like, what's that? And the answer is he's been looking at it for 3 quarters. He doesn't know where it's coming from. And he's just wide-eyed and looking around. And he's not going to make great plays at that point. So the Panthers pretty much all over the Saints. CMC, you mentioned it, but he just deserves another mention. We missed CMC, right? When he was hurt, he's so damn dynamic. He is in a category of a very few guys, and one of them was on the other side in this game, Alvin Kamara, right? A guy that can act equally as a receiver, as a rusher, inside, outside, different concepts, ran a bunch with power, had a power touchdown, right? Just legs churning, and then can equally go out on the screen, make a guy miss, and go 30 yards like your best slot receiver. There aren't many guys that can do that consistently, and look, the Panthers are just so much better with CMC on the field. He bails them out of some. He had a play where they threw him what was basically a 4-yard loss, dead to rights. Guy was right on him. Step back, gave himself a little bit of cushion. Juke to the side, ends up barely getting past the line of scrimmage, ends up being like a 3-yard gain, but it should have been dead to rights 3 to 4 yard loss. It's like a 7-yard difference, and it's purely because CMC is CMC. Like it's fun. You talked about a reunion. It's fun to see him back on the football field and making plays like that because I'm not going to say he's one of one, but he's like one of 5 that can give you the variety of skill set. Power inside, speed outside, vision, hands. You know, baseball talks about a 5-tool player. Like if CMC played baseball, he would be a 5-tool player.
People always talk about not paying running backs. I'm like, well, it depends on the running back.
Yeah, he's not just a running back. He can do a lot of things for you. He can fill 2.5 roles. You know, the other thing is, you know, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Saints defense. Peyton Turner showed up in a big way, especially down the stretch.
Had a huge sack.
Yeah, and another one that got roughing the passer, which was there's 3 roughing the passer calls in this game, and the first one I made a note of it because it was egregiously horrible, and by that I mean he barely touched him. He literally took Jameson, like 2-hand pushed him in the shoulder plate, like burp. James didn't even fall over. They threw a flag, 15 yards, roughing the passer. It was at 11:48 in the first quarter. I made note of it. It says, worst roughing call ever. Just touched him. Came in, and I was like, why did they throw a flag? And then they're like, roughing. And I was like, whoa, back it up. I didn't see. And he literally came in, gave him a 2-hand shove in the chest. James took about 3 steps backward. That's roughing the passer. Peyton Turner got one later. I understand it was going low, but Peyton Turner really cranked it up at the end of the game. Paulson Adebo played great, one of the corners out of Stanford that we really liked. He's getting his chance. Desi Trufant made a play in this game, was on the Bears roster, ended up getting picked up by New Orleans, had a great pass deflection. Malcolm Roach, we talked about, ended up with a random interception, but played some pretty stout interior defense along the way. There's just a lot of guys that you can't overlook. The Saints defense is not bad, and the Panthers were still able to move the ball against them. Demario Davis, of course, had a million tackles like he always does. Marcus Williams had some really big flash plays in this game, both coming up on the line and in pass coverage deeper down the field. So it's not like the Saints are bad, but the Panthers are getting good in a hurry. You get that classic video game get good thing. Like the Panthers are getting good like quick. And if Darnold still has some things to clean up, if CMC can stay healthy, they have a ton of weapons on offense. The defense looks ahead of the offense. If anything, they're going to be a tough out for the rest of the year.
This week's episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. Fall is always a busy time of year. You have a lot of holidays, a lot of family gatherings. At least for me, it's probably my busiest work period of the year because, football. And at least this time of year, I tend to have a lot less time on my hands to go grocery shopping and meal planning and, of course, cooking. And that's where HelloFresh comes in. For me at least, because my house is kind of way away from all the local grocery stores, my average grocery store trip takes well over an hour, and that's not counting the time it takes to plan out my meals and put together shopping lists and all that. But with HelloFresh, I just get all of these portioned out ingredients delivered right to my door. I don't have to go anywhere, I don't have to plan everything, and every meal that I've gotten has been amazing. HelloFresh also makes it easy to make all of their recipes too, just by following the instructions, even if you're relatively new to cooking. Plus, an average HelloFresh customer saves 28% in cost compared to going to their local grocery store and buying the same ingredients to make the same meals. And because each meal is portioned out perfectly, you're not buying a bunch of extra food that ends up going to waste too. So HelloFresh is more sustainable as well. For people that have crazy schedules or people that just want to learn to cook great food that doesn't cost a lot of money, HelloFresh has been an incredible service for me for a very long time, and I know that you're going to love it too. So if you want to try it out for yourself, go to hellofresh.com/bootleg14 and use promo code bootleg14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. Again, that is hellofresh.com/bootleg14 and use promo code bootleg14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. All right, EJ, let's get to the first of 3 down, which is, I don't want to say it's the depressing part of the podcast, but if your team is the subject of it, you're probably not going to like it very much. First up is the Miami Dolphins, who, let's just say, everything that possibly could have gone wrong against their division rival, the Bills, absolutely did go wrong. They lost, 35-0. Tua broke his ribs because the offensive line can't protect worth a damn. He's not playing this Sunday, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not playing for several Sundays because broken ribs really, really hurt. The defense got shredded. As I mentioned, the offensive line got shredded. After Tua, I'd say their backup quarterback situation is not ideal. Jacoby Brissett really, really struggled. So I look at this Dolphins team, who I predicted to win the division, and I thought that they would have given a much more valiant fight to the Bills. They don't have their starting quarterback for however long it's going to be. The offensive line is massively underperforming. I don't know what to make of them right now. And setting the Bills aside, I don't even know if they're as good as the Patriots, who they beat in week 1. Like, they barely beat the Patriots, who historically, September Patriots are not the same as October, November, and December Patriots. Like, the Patriots are going to get a lot better between now and playoff time. In the rematch, I'm not so sure that this team is going to be able to hold up against New England. Is Miami the third best team in the AFC East with or without Tua? Because after this past Sunday, I'm kind of starting to think that maybe they are.
Yeah, it's not far off from my mark on this game. We had sort of circled this game. We had originally talked about possibly going to this game 3 or 4 months ago when we were looking at the season. We're like, early season in Miami. We were predicting, strong season for Miami. We knew Buffalo was going to stay strong at that point. Brian Daboll was still in town. Josh Allen was still the quarterback. Things were looking good. We're like, this is going to be the sort of crux power move early in the season. And early season games in Miami are in Miami's favor. It's still hot. It's still humid. Teams get smoked by that. They come in and get overwhelmed. Now, same thing. Miami goes north late in the year. That game goes to that home stadium's favor. Everything was lined up for Miami to do as well as they could. They were largely at full strength. They didn't have any major minuses heading into the game. Everybody's dinged up a little bit. But they laid an egg. This was not a competitive game. They got flat out smoked. And that's kind of the thing with Miami right now is like the plan looks good. We like the GM. We like the talent. We like the coaching. You put up 0 points against the folks that are currently holding your division title. That's not okay. Like at this point of the program, it's not like they don't have their quarterback. Yes, he got knocked out of the game. It's not like they don't have offensive linemen. They have a bunch of them. They've invested in it. It's not like they don't have weapons. They do. They picked one up high. They have a great tight end. Like 0 is not acceptable. I don't care how good the other team is. Early season at your house, 0 is not acceptable.
The hard part for them is their next 3 games is they are at the Raiders this week. Which
not a good draw right now. Raiders
That's
are hot.
Tough. They host the Colts, who, assuming the Colts can kind of get their head out of their ass a little bit, like theoretically the Colts are going to be a very tough out themselves. Like without Tua on the field, I don't feel great about picking Miami in that game.
Even money at best, yeah.
Even money at best. And then week 5, they're on the road to Tampa. I'm not saying they will start 1-4, but 1-4 is absolutely on the table right now. And I'll tell you, I don't remember the last time I saw a 1-4 team come back and make the playoffs. Like maybe the math changes in a 17-game season. Like maybe it's conceivable. But shit, in this division, you go down by 3 games behind the division leader? Oof.
No, they've got to split with the Colts, and they got to get a roll against the Raiders or the Bucks. Either one, they need to split. They need to kind of come out with on an any given Sunday kind of win, and it does happen. The parity in the NFL is, I don't want to say unmatched, but it's unbeaten, right? It comes back and rears its head every year. They could do that. If they do that, I'm with you. They have a puncher's chance. It's still not a great setup, right? If you look at that record as opposed to 1-4, it's better, but it's like life preserver better. So they're going to have to get that, and I'm with you. The odds don't look like they're going to get that right now. And if they do start 1-4, not saying it's over, but the band is warming up. It's going to be very, very tough to come back from that.
Why don't we talk about another team in the AFC East for our second 3 down? Zach Wilson. Man, you thought Miami had a rough day. Zach Wilson individually he threw more picks in one game against the Patriots than he threw all last year at BYU. Like, it was a shockingly bad performance. Like, even by rookie quarterbacks against a Belichick defense standards, like that was a take him out back to the woodshed drubbing. And it wasn't like, oh, he had a couple batted at the line or anything, the miscommunication with the receiver. Like, no, all 4 of those picks were awful. The last one, where he just launched it off his back foot to God knows who. Like, I didn't get it. And full disclosure, I watched Zach Wilson versus the Panthers in week 1 when I was starting the Panthers defense too. At least until like the last quarter of that game, he didn't look too hot either. So we're going on back-to-back games where Zach Wilson just is not making good decisions. He's missing some throws that at least by BYU Zach Wilson was not missing. His pocket presence was shaky at best. I don't know. To me, it looks like so far, at least, the game has been a little bit fast for him. And if there was any like veteran option on the roster, if they had Andy Dalton and not Chicago, Andy Dalton probably be starting right now because it just hasn't looked good. And this is not me saying that Zach Wilson's going to be a bust or blah, 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 all that reactionary bullshit. I'm just saying in the first 2 games of Zach Wilson's career, there's rookie mistakes, and then there's whatever the hell that was. And he has a lot to get corrected because it has not been good. It really has not been good.
Yeah, the worst thing that could have happened for him was that he had a pretty decent first half against the Panthers, right? And if you really dig into it, no, it wasn't like great veteran moments against the Panthers, but it looked pretty good for a first-round rookie. Again, Jets fans are used to seeing Adam Gase offenses, so what Wilson did in the first half against the Panthers, people were like, aha! He has arrived, right? Which is why we have been preaching for weeks. Don't overreact to week 1, good or bad, right? Don't sell your stock if your team bombs out in week 1. they can right the ship. And if you look suddenly wonderful and beat somebody you shouldn't, or play somebody tough deep into the game that you shouldn't, maybe just temper expectations, wait until the end of the month and see what you got. Zach Wilson's week 2, this was Bill Belichick teaching a rookie a lesson, right? He basically said, I know what he can't do, and I'm about to show him what he can't do. And let's see if he dials it down after I do it 2 or 3 times, or if he sort of doubles down. And Wilson, for the most part, like you said on the last pick, doubled down. He was just like, heave it up. And you heave it up against the Patriots, they're a well-coached team, right? Bill Belichick will right the ship. This was the funny story. So the Seahawks game was a later game. It was a 1:30 start. You and I were not together on Sunday morning. We ended up meeting up in the parking lot to go into the stadium. And I was like, oh, what'd you hear about the early games while we're waiting in line? I was like, it sounds like Zach Wilson's having a rough day. I was like, 3 picks. You're like, nah, it's 4 now. I was like, what? I just looked. It was 3. And you're like, and we hadn't seen the game. We hadn't looked at the film, but it was just like, wait a minute. He played okay in week 1. He played pretty well in preseason. Preseason's preseason, but he played pretty well against what we both thought was a good Panthers defense in week 1. Like, what the? Oh, Patriots. Yeah. No, this is Bill, like you said, taking him out behind the woodshed and going, yeah, nothing's for free, Rook. And Jets fans are going to have to know that they're going to have to put their faith in Robert Saleh and the staff he's brought in and the talent they've acquired, which is tremendous. They're going to have to build with that. It is not a light the switch and we swept Gase away and now we're a division contender. Not at all. They're going to have to go the slow, steady road, learn how to win, mesh that talent with scheme. And again, we were just talking about with the Panthers. Year 2, year 3, this team's going to come together maybe quickly. This year, everybody like, woohoo, Zach Wilson's going to save us. Rookie quarterbacks don't save. It's not what they do. They learn, they get better, and hopefully they show they have some of that moxie. We saw a little bit of that from Joe Burrow last year. We knew that he had that, but interestingly enough, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. So Zach Wilson, temper expectations, hope that he can limit some of those crazy mistakes, but boy, yeah, he got it handed to him on Sunday. It was a rough day.
Our number 3 for 3 down, yet another offense. Not quite as rough as Zach Wilson, but considering some of the talent they have available to them, I would say the Steelers' offense has sputtered, and that's a generous way to describe it the first 2 weeks. I know the Bills' defense is very good. I know the Raiders are much better defensively, but you invest a first-round pick in a running back, and you're getting, at best, like 45 rushing yards in each of these first 2 games. You're lucky to average like 3.5 yards a carry. We said all offseason leading up to the draft, like when Najee was being connected to the Steelers, it's like we love Najee, the player. But after the Steelers took him, we said Najee, the player, is not going to be able to create holes for himself. They needed to invest even more in the offensive line than they did. And to be perfectly frank, the rookies that the Steelers drafted in the offensive line, I thought, have acquitted themselves fairly well. But overall, I still am not convinced that they did enough to address the offensive line, either through the draft or through free agency. The depth still isn't there. Obviously, they're really struggling to gain any sort of movement in the run game at all. Ben's arm is not what it was. I do think that it's maybe a little bit more snappy than it was last year, but this is nowhere near prime Ben. He's throwing, I think it was like 40 passes. Last week, he threw 32 in week 1, and he's still 19th in terms of number of 20-plus air yard passes in the league among starting NFL quarterbacks. And you're throwing that often, and only 11% of them are going past 20 yards, despite having Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth is a really athletic tight end, Eric Ebron's a really athletic tight end. Like, you're not pushing the ball down the field at all, despite throwing that much. There's just something really wrong here. It's they can't run the ball, they can't stretch the field, their quarterback can't move. I don't know what the solution is here, other than just hoping everybody gets healthy and magically starts executing better. But absent of that, like, I don't see an easy fix. I really don't know how far, I should say, the Steelers are going to go this year, because I don't think their offense is any better this year than it was last year, and their offense was not that good last year.
We talk a lot about the league being offensively focused, right? It's not only offensively focused, it's a passing focused league. So if you got a quarterback that's not mobile and people are going to be teeing off on him, look, Ben has taken as many shots as anybody, and there's no questioning his toughness, but that's mileage, right? We talk about running backs taking a lot of hits. Like, I would argue that Ben Roethlisberger is taking more hits than probably any current quarterback playing. He's not the oldest.
Even Brady, despite Brady playing how many more years than him?
Right, but so many less hits if you add them up. Now, I don't have numbers to back that up. Now I'm going to have to go do the addition because everybody's going to attack me in the comments and say, but really, actually, no, Ben, early in his career, he's so big and so strong that he would shove guys off. He had this sort of center of gravity where people would hit him full out and he'd just kind of go, yeah. And he kept playing that way, and he's played a lot of years. He's been incredibly successful, but he can't move like he used to. And you can't think that even though he was built out of iron for so many years, that hasn't added up, right? That he doesn't feel all that stuff every day. And he's just going to feel it more because people know where he is now. And he was never super mobile, but he could get away, and he was just super tough, super strong. He was Big Ben. He'd just stand back there in the pocket and take shots and throw bombs, and he can't throw the bombs anymore. He's still going to take the shots, and I'm with you that leaves me questioning where that arrow is going to be mid-season or especially late in the season when the arm fades for older quarterbacks. It always does, and all that punishment starts to add up. I have more questions than answers about the Steelers right now.
Let's go to 3 interesting, which is, again, it's not 3 good and it's not 3 bad. It's literally just 3 weird things or 3 notable things that we want to point out that we just could not go this entire show without at least mentioning. The first is I'm calling the Eagles enigma. And let me set the stage for this sequence of events that happened over the course of 2 consecutive possessions early in the game against San Francisco. And Eagles fans, I apologize for having to rehash this because you're going to be really pissed off just remembering how winnable this game was. Keep in mind the final score, the Niners won 17-11. So Philly was up 3-0, 3 minutes to go in the first. They marched down to about 10 seconds left in the first. Hurts throws a beautiful ball to Jalen Reagor for a 36-yard touchdown. Joyous occasion. Rager's doing it. He's looking like he's worth the first-round pick. Oh, wait, no, he stepped out by like an inch. So they call the touchdown back. They end up working down to the 29-yard line. Drive stalls. Going to kick a field goal. Going to try to go up 6-0. It gets blocked. Shit. They get no points when they were an inch away from getting 7. The very next Eagles drive, they start on their own 3-yard line. San Francisco works it down the field a little bit, punts, pins them at the 3. They get a 91-yard pass to Quez Watkins because that's very on brand for Quez Watkins. He's super fast. They then get 7 plays inside the 11-yard line. 6 of them were inside the 6-yard line. No points. And they got real cute. They called Philly special on 4th and 3 for some godforsaken reason. It's incomplete. They get nothing out of the drive. I'm losing my mind. EJ's losing his mind. They very easily could have been up 17-0, like midway through the second quarter, and they end up losing 17-11. If that doesn't tell you how crazy the NFL is and how the difference in a blowout and a loss is on a knife's edge in this league, I don't know what will demonstrate it. Because, I mean, if I'm an Eagles fan, I am sick over that game because it was so winnable, and they still lost.
Yeah, I went back to watch this game. I was really interested because the Philly defense played amazing in week one. Really, we were watching that game in Caesar Sportsbook, and I turned to you halfway through that. I was like, man, Philly is smacking them around. Like, their defense is flying around. That's, I didn't necessarily expect that. So I just sort of took note and said, hey, Shanahan, game next week. This is going to be something to watch. I want to see, again, if the 49ers excel, if Philly can hold it together. So I went back and watched. This is one of the first rewatches I did this week. And I was watching it late at night. And this whole segment was spawned by the fact that I sent you a DM and I've got it pulled up because it just cracked me up. And so I just laid out not the entire sequence, but the two sequences linked together is really powerful. It was the 90-plus yard completion to Quez, which is a beautiful ball from Jalen Hurts. We need to say he throws it from his own end zone, throws it over coverage, over the shoulder. It's in stride. It's a Jalen Hurts moon ball. We'll just call it what it was. And it was awesome. And I'm like, so Philly throws a 90-plus yard completion from their own 2 and comes away with 0 points. And your response was, how the F does that even happen? I'm like, well, you're going to have to go back and take a look, and then linking it together because, again, they had a chance for a field goal. They got nothing. They go down, they play the first play, and this was probably, and again, Philly fans, really sorry to set you off this way. This isn't just to grind salt in the wound. It's because it's an amazing thing, and that's why it ended up in 3 interesting. The very first play when they go all the way down on San Francisco's a false start. They just kick themselves straight in the teeth and give themselves 5 yards. But my point from there is, even so, you're sitting at like the 7-yard line. You have Jalen Hurts, a legitimate dual threat. He showed it in this game. Ran for 81 yards, right? 8.1 or 82 yards, 8.2 per and a TD. Like, legitimate threat with his legs. Looked easy running the ball all day. Made good choices there. Had a couple of great deep shots. Was not great passing the ball all day, but like talented with his arm, talented with his legs. You're going to make the defense account for everybody, or at least you should. You're on the 7. You have a lot of playmakers. They drafted Devonta Smith up high. They got a good tight end who can work. Like, and they get nothing. And they didn't even look close. Now, credit to D'Amico Ryans and San Francisco defense. They made it difficult. Fred Warner had a couple of tremendous plays in that 7-play sequence that you were talking about, both in the pass and against the run. Philly never looked close to getting points, and you legitimately delivered the ball to the doorstep of San Francisco, and then you never even really knocked. You didn't look like you ever had a legitimate shot of scoring. And that's the sort of you hear people talking about teams learning how to win, new coaching staffs learning how to put it together, not getting cute, all that stuff. My answer to Brett was, it was kind of Nagyitis. Like, they got cute and called a bunch of weird stuff down near the goal line that never really threatened. Like, these are the things that teams need to do. They have the talent, they have the coaching, they have scheme. It's not that they can't do it. It's that they don't execute it well. You look at Brady or Rodgers in that situation, they're throwing a very crisp, 3-yard out on a break, balls in the air. Guy catches it 6 inches in front of the defensive back, leans into the end zone. It's a score, goes down as 6. They walk back, look at the tablets, get some Gatorade, do it again, right? Philly takes 7 plays to basically burn their 91-yard reception and come away with 0. And it is absolutely the difference in a game. And yeah, if I was an Eagles fan, I'd be upset because this game was well within reach and they played, you hear it all the time, well enough to win. But they didn't, and this is why.
Yeah, well enough to win and still not winning. Unfortunately, has been a little bit too emblematic of the Eagles ever since their Super Bowl win a few years ago. It's been a lot of heartbreakers for that franchise, and we'll add that one to the list. 3 interesting, number 2 was something that I'm sure it's happened before. But I certainly can't remember the last time it's happened, and I off the top of my head, I really have no memory of anything like this, and that's Joe Burrow throwing 3 interceptions on 3 consecutive passes. And there was a little bit of rough luck involved there on the third one. It, got tipped at the line and picked. But the first two absolutely were his fault. On the first one, he somehow did not see Roquan Smith just floating under the receiver, threw it right to him. The second one was on Jalen Johnson. Just stared it down. Jalen was playing over the top of the receiver in bail technique, was reading the eyes, closed on it, got a pick. And then the third one, it was tipped to the line. And it just goes to show, like, Joe Burrow, for as much as we love him, and I think as good as he's going to be for the Bengals, even he still has these days at the office as a young quarterback where you're looking at him, you're like, Joe, the hell are you doing, buddy? Like, how do you not see Roquan Smith 10 feet in front of you? How do you stare down Jalen Johnson of all corners? Like, it was rough, and he got punished.
Yeah, Jalen got him. Like, Jalen broke on that ball before he threw it. Jalen studies. Jalen understood what the look was. He understood the route depth. Matt Bowen did a great breakdown of this on Twitter. Like, he knows that route's going to break between 12 and 15 yards. He knows what it is. And Jalen Johnson starts going forward. He starts, we call that click and close. He starts his click and close before the ball leaves Burrow's hands. He knows it's coming. So he is well in front of him. He's completely shielding the receiver, and it's whether he catches it or doesn't. He catches it, looks good. You go back, watch that film. Like, Jalen got him on that one, and Joe's going to have to understand that sometimes that's the case. The defense gets paid to make plays too. Jalen Johnson is playing as the number one corner in the NFL right now, depending on whose ratings you look at. He's having a tremendous follow-up sophomore season to what was a very good freshman season in the NFL. The third one, yes, rough luck. And it is just when you see that stuff, I don't know, I was playing Monopoly for the first time last night with my kids in forever, and I had completely forgotten about the rule where if you roll 3 doubles, you go to jail. This is kind of Joe Burrow rolling 3 doubles in a row. Like, it doesn't happen very often. It's not probably going to happen again to him, maybe ever, certainly anytime soon, I would predict. But the Roquan one, I've seen a lot of people analyze that pick and say what he was looking at, what he missed, what he didn't see. When we were talking about Roquan's All-Pro candidacy last year, we said what he needs is big play where he picks it off and scores, hopefully in a primetime game because it sways voters. It shouldn't. He didn't have any of those last year, and he ended up coming up on the short end of the stick for All-Pro voting, although he shouldn't have. This year, still playing tremendous football and picked off Joe Burrow on Sunday and ran back. Like, that's a big play, helps the Bears win. Those are the kind of things that start candidacy for that. So, tough luck on Burrow's part. We love Burrow. We don't think this is any indication, of course, that Joe's not going to be a great quarterback. We already think he is a great quarterback. But even great quarterbacks have really bad days. You can go back in anybody's history. Favre had plenty of 3 and 4 interception days, right? Everybody's got, Drew Brees has done it. Like, everybody has their bad days. This was one of Joe Burrow's bad days. And, won't be the last one, but my guess is they'll be few and far between because Joe's a smart guy and he learns from his mistakes.
Now, number 3 is Justin Fields finally saw some NFL action in a regular season game. Unfortunately, it was due to an injury to Andy Dalton, who has been ruled out for this week. Nick Foles will be the backup, so Justin Fields is getting his first start this week. I think you and I have been heavily anticipating Fields getting out there because, at least when you look at the preseason, you could argue that he looked the best out of any of the 5 first-round rookies, and we wanted to see him get reps with the actual starters: Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, Dave Montgomery. We wanted to see him out there with his great skill position talent because he was making stuff happen with second and third stringers all throughout the offseason. So I, for one, am very excited. Obviously, it was very up and down, him just kind of getting thrown in the middle of a game. He had, one big highlight where he got the corner with his legs and showed off that, that 4.4 speed's legit. But I'm excited to see him now get the reps with the starters in practice for once, go into a game knowing that he's the starter, and hopefully look like the 11th overall pick that we know, or at least that we think he's going to be, it's probably one of the more exciting Bears games coming up here in week 3 that I can remember since probably that 2018 playoff run, because this game this weekend represents the future. And I would say most Bears fans, yourself included, think that that future is going to be pretty bright.
Yeah, we're going to see both. I want people to temper expectations. We are going to see high highs. Justin Fields has them in him. He showed them in the preseason. He showed them in week 1. He ended up scoring with his legs on a great cut to the end zone. But reps with the starters, knowing your starter is a different thing. And I think what most Bears fans, based on everything that's happened since Sunday and what continues to kind of go through people's minds, is Justin Fields, if he plays even average for a rookie, he doesn't relinquish his job, because he's going to give the Bears more chances. Is our offensive line great? No, it's struggling right now. The interior especially. Like, the tackles played okay against the Bengals. The interior, including Cody Whitehair, not getting it done. Sam Mustipher's getting tossed around. Cody Whitehair's not looked good. David Montgomery didn't have the day he had against the Rams, which was surprising but awesome. Against the Bengals, the Bengals had re-upped their, they reinvested in their defensive front, and it showed. And look, Justin Fields gives you a better chance to win in those situations, not because he's not going to see pressure. Look, Andy Dalton was seeing pressure. It's one of the reasons he got knocked out. It was a non-contact injury that he left with, but he'd seen pressure before that. And who do you want in the backfield when you're seeing that kind of pressure? A guy that's that big and that strong and has that kind of speed, or Andy Dalton, right? I'm going to take Justin Fields. He's going to create more plays. Is he going to take sacks? He is. Is he going to throw some bad picks? Yep. He stood up at the podium afterwards and says, yep, I didn't see that. It's a learning experience. I know what it is now. Probably not going to do it again. And Justin Fields, by all accounts, has a tremendous memory. Like, one of the things that stood out in the pre-draft process, that he could go up to the whiteboard, tell you what he did on almost any play from any piece of film. Like, he's probably not going to make that mistake again. Is he going to make other mistakes? He absolutely is. Is he going to make some incredible highlights where he takes off for 25, 30 yards, where he rips an 80-yard pass on a dime to Allen Robinson, and Allen Robinson freaking drops it because he didn't expect to see a ball right there. He hasn't seen one like that in so long. I think he just forgot what it looked like. So it's going to happen. He's going to hit Mooney and Kmet. He's going to spread the ball around. He did at Ohio State as well. It's going to be exciting. It is the future. We're going to see growth. We're going to see the high highs. We're going to see some low lows. Is he going to rack up wins and stack them? Probably not. Is he going to give the Bears a better chance to do that than what they currently had? And the answer is yes. Even in the state they're in, he absolutely does. It's going to be fun to see him play.
Why don't we get to my favorite segment, at least, the bootleg shot of the week. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to throw up video of all the nominees, because this is a video show now. Last year it was not, so we couldn't really throw up video of the nominees. But if you're just in the podcast version, you want to see the video of all these hits, just go to the same timestamp. But over on the YouTube version of the show, you'll get to see all these hits back to back. If you vote on these nominees, we'll have ability in the comments below in YouTube to vote on this. Next week, that'll be the winner. So remember to vote on your favorite hit for the bootleg shot of the week. Nominee number 1, Nick Bellore, offensive and defensive extraordinaire, plays both sides of the ball depending on whatever you want him to do, but he also plays special teams. So he's a three-way player for the Hawks, and we were actually at this game and saw this live, him just screaming through on the coverage unit, just detonating the returner. I mean, you could hear that from the upper deck. Just crazy hit.
It was the hearing it. It was, yes. Saw it. You were actually ended up talking to a fan who we should call out, whose birthday it was, that came up. You posted where we'd be at the game, and you were talking to him at the time. It was right before halftime. And I was watching the field, sort of half listening to him watching the field, and I heard it before I saw it. Like, because again, the angle we were at on the field, Nick Bellore basically came in behind some of the coverage unit, and the pad sound in that stadium, which amplifies noise anyways, like it or hate it, it does. The crack of plastic on plastic at high speed was like, I recoiled. I was like, oh, and you turned and said, what happened? I said, somebody, because I couldn't tell it was Nick Bellore at the time because he was behind other players, like somebody just got laid out. Of course, they lay it up on the screen, and Nick Bellore is a favorite of mine. I was like, 44, there it is. Nick Bellore just crushing the returner, and it was the sound. Like, even when you go back and listen to this on YouTube, like, wait for the sound. It's something else.
And the best part is it was a clean hit, too. Like, textbook, lay you the fuck out kind of hit. Absolutely teaching tape there from Nick Bellore. Nominee number 2, Grant Delpit, coming in on the blind side, Davis Mills. Well, not even really the blind side. He should have seen it coming, but didn't because he's Davis Mills. Got absolutely wrecked by Grant Delpit, who's looking nice and spry, coming off that Achilles tear from his rookie season that made him miss his entire rookie year. Seems to be back to his former 4.4 speed that we enjoyed at LSU. Nominee number 3, Quincy Williams. Is it brother or cousin of Quinnen Williams? Relative of Quinnen Williams. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I don't know is the answer.
I think it's brother. And he absolutely flattened James White in the flat last week. It was a bone-crushing hit. Might have been the most violent hit out of all of them. Maybe not the most textbook hit, but certainly the most violent.
Yeah, little flare pass to James White. He's one of those ones where he's keeping his eye on the ball. He's coming out in the left, catches the ball, turns, and wow, like Quincy was right there and got all of him.
Yeah, he just crushed him. Nominee number 4, this is actually I guess you could say a double nominee because there was actually 2 Raiders that flattened Big Ben in the pocket. He got the pass off, but boy, he took a big hit. He paid the price. He took a big hit while doing it. And it was classic Ben, just buying time, trying to get it downfield. But by the time he did get it downfield, I think it was Max Crosby and some linebacker. They were just both equal opportunity deliverers of punishment there. And he got up to his credit, but old man Ben can't take those hits like he used to. I'll say that. And then nominee number 5, Brian Burns. We mentioned this sack a little bit earlier. It was late in the fourth quarter on Winston. They brought one of those creepers. The offensive line, for whatever reason, just could not sort it out. I think it was Teron Armstead had a 2-on-1 where he had to block inside out. And Brian Burns just got let go because they slid the wrong way. And, you give Brian Burns a free shot at the quarterback, which he's had in back-to-back weeks now because of the design of these pressures. They've been able to get Brian Burns unblocked for sacks. He's so fast and so quick that there was just nothing Winston could do. He just got blown up.
There's a play earlier in that game where Kamara needed about 4 yards for a first down. They threw him a little flare, and it's him versus Brian Burns 1-on-1. And 9.5 times out of 10, Alvin Kamara is going to smoke anybody on him on that route, scoot out for 4 yards, instant first down. Brian Burns ran him out 1.5 yards short. Straight up 1-on-1, no help. That was shocking to me. Like, Brian Burns, everybody knows how quick he is. We talk about that, how quickly he gets by people, how good his ghost move is. He's flat out fast too. And there's a difference between quick and fast. And when you can run stride for stride and push Alvin Kamara out short of marker when he wants it, and you're as big as Brian Burns is, like, you're fast. So if you get him clean off the edge, if he gets by you with that ghost move, he has the speed to absolutely bring that stuff home. And Jameis felt it on the last one. Well, he probably felt it on all of them. But he got cleaned up on the last one. It was rough.
So those are your 5 nominees for Bootleg Shot of the Week. Again, we're going to have a vote down in the comments below in the YouTube version of this show. Stop on by, watch all the hits, vote for your favorite, and we'll toast the winner next week. And with that brings us to our last segment, our Week 3 watch list. These are the 3 games that we cannot wait to dig into in Week 3. Maybe consider it a little bit chalky, but we don't care. These are the 3 best games of the week for us. That is Chiefs versus Chargers, because how could you not love Justin Herbert versus Pat Mahomes, 2 of the freakiest freaks to ever freak. Tampa Bay versus the Rams. because Tom Brady versus that Rams defense and Matthew Stafford versus that Tampa defense just sounds like must-see TV to me. And then obviously we had to put Chicago versus Cleveland, Justin Fields making his starting debut. The Browns, at least to me, are an extremely entertaining team for a multitude of reasons. It sounds like OBJ is going to make his season debut as well. So lots of reasons to watch that game. All three of these, I think, are just fantastic matchups. And I still haven't decided how I'm going to bet all of them because I think that they're all very, very close.
Yeah, again, we talked about the NFL just being a tremendously entertaining product. And when we were talking preseason about where we wanted to go and games we wanted to see, two of these were games we circled, right? We're like, come on, Mahomes versus Herbert. Like, we were even talking about it, early enough that we didn't exactly know when and where. We just knew they were going to play. And we're like, when that happens, we want to be there because that's going to be an air show that is going to be tough to miss. Once Stafford made it to the Rams, there was a lot, to understate it, a lot of anticipation about his fit in that system and what he could do in a McVay offense with all those weapons, and Tom Brady continuing to play at an, I'll just say, an ungodly level. That's going to be, we flirted with the idea while we were sitting at the Seahawks game about going to this game, about me flying down and us going to the Rams game, because again, if we've got a list of players you want to see, like, Brady's a guy that, I haven't seen live, and I will kick myself if I don't see Tom Brady. He's the best football player ever. And he's playing at such a high level. Again, we don't have a ton of years left, only, 8 or 10. So I feel rushed. But a tremendous game, Bucs and Rams. And then Bears-Browns is just like, Browns are so good, and Justin Fields is such a wild card. You call it David Goliath, whatever it is. It's going to be an interesting game no matter what. Because we're going to get to see Fields do his thing. If you're a Browns fan, you're absolutely hoping that, your team crushes an undermanned opponent, and they should, quite frankly, on paper. I haven't looked at the line yet, but if the Browns aren't favored heavily, I would be surprised. So
it's got to be like at least
it's got to be a big line. If it's a 3-point line, I would be stunned. It shouldn't be a 3-point line. Let's put it that way. So anyways, those three are the games we're going to focus on. But, of course, we'll watch all the games. We'll bring you, again, through this 3 up, 3 down, 3 interesting format, our rule of 3 that's sort of running the podcast this year. Our chance to run around the league, pick out interesting stories, pick out interesting teams, players, results, keep you up to date on the NFL, keep you in the game. But tons going on. We're going to be here every week. We are not going to a game this week. I know we've got you spoiled the last 2 weeks. We've been there in person. But we'll be bringing you all the great content. We're going to start throwing in some live streams on Fridays throughout the season. We'll certainly watch Twitter to find those. Got some surprises coming out for you next week. We'll hold those in check for now. But yeah, keep watching, keep listening, and we'll be here.
So we love you all. We will see you back here Wednesday, ideally. We'll see. We want these to come out on Wednesday, so we'll hope to see you back here in 5 or 6 days, whenever that is, for our week 3 recap and look ahead into week 4. We'll see you all very soon, and until then, later.
Take care.